to kick things off, we have a couple of things to actually go through. Some of them are a little bit more forward looking, but some of them are just recaps of stuff that's happened over the past 2 weeks. So to start off, I'll cover the small stuff first, and then we'll go into the more important stuff. So first things first, early or at some point last week, I think it was, Hidden Hand finally crossed the sort of 40 million cumulative bribe volume across all the markets since inception, which is pretty dope. Hidden Hand's been, one of our longest standing products, actually the longest standing product. So it's cool to see it reach these milestones even still. We have Balancer and Aura and a couple of the other projects that are like core users of Hidden Hand even till this day, even though it's not one of our main products, it's still very much chugging along and doing pretty well considering the state that the bribe market vertical is in. So that was good to see. And then we also last week introduced this new integration with Enzo that I don't know exactly what Enzo does. Derek can maybe explain it better than me, but the integration that we launched specifically for Bera ETH and ZK ETH lets people sort of like more efficiently stake or unstake from branded LSTs. Derek, I don't know if you want to outline what the actual like integration is.
Yeah, so pretty much like you can deposit with any token in your wallet on ZK Sync Era or Bearer chain, and it'll automatically swap that into ETH and deposit it into like Bearer ETH or ZK ETH for you. And then when you're on staking, before or the way like the system is designed, that is you can only receive your ETH like on Ethereum mainnet, but now like it provides routes for you to just swap out of ZK ETH or Bearer ETH and receive the ETH on that chain. And then I believe also like there's one more for Ethereum mainnet, but I can't quite remember it. But yeah, there's another route there.
Yeah, so basically just a big quality of life improvement that people have been asking for. And I don't know, Derek, are we expanding beyond Bera ETH and ZK ETH, or like we just starting with those? Like is there a plan to go deeper?
Yeah, it's pretty much just up to them, like where they're actually integrated at. So for now, they're only on Berachain and ZK Sync, at least for our branded LCs.
Fire. So yeah, if you're a user of either of those LSTs, it just got easier to stake and unstake from those. Another integration that went live is our integration with Binance Wallet. So I believe they added support for APX ETH onto the wallet, which is nice. They have like, I think Binance Wallet does a ton of like various dApp integrations that make it easier to interface with like different DeFi protocols. So just another like decent win. Putting APX ETH in front of more eyeballs. Another similar integration that went live. This was actually yesterday. Is our integration into this platform called Revo? I think is how you say it. Revo, something like that. But basically, what they built is this like yield marketplace combined with a smart wallet. They basically just aggregate yield opportunities, and people can sign up through them, set up a smart wallet, and then deposit into whatever yield opportunities they want. The alpha here is that I think very, very soon they are launching a points program. And so might be interesting to explore that. And I think we got integrated with good timing if they're about to, push the points program very hard. So that could be another interesting opportunity for people. Beyond, I think that's all integration. So beyond that, any launches, let me see, where should we should probably just go over Orbeth and then we can go over some IPXE stuff. So for those of you paying attention, Orbeth went live yesterday. This is one of the bigger like named branded LSTs that we've launched besides like Bera ETH and a couple others. This one we kind of introduced it a while ago just to kind of like claim the ticker and let people know it was coming. And then we did the actual launch yesterday. Got amplified by Arbitrum and Co. And then there's a couple of super chains that we are working with. And so for those not familiar, the super chain is an orbit chain rather. An orbit chain is similar to the super chain thesis that Optimism has. I don't know the like super technical differences, but it's kind of the same idea. And there have already been Freudian slip. There's already been a couple of orbit chains that have adopted Orbeth. And I don't know, Derek, maybe we can go over like what our plans are with Orbith, and then where like what type of integrations we're working on, and then what people can expect from Orbith on some of these other like orbit chains.
Yeah. So to start, for the other orbit chains, we'll be hosting a liquidity on Camelot. That's like kind of the standard there. But superposition, they have like some different like yield mechanisms baked into the protocol. And so they'll like be working on integrating Orbith into that. Senko, they're pretty much running a points program for people using the chain. And they kind of have like all sorts of things around gaming, NFTs, and such. And like Orbith will be included in that. And then the main integration that would be coming up is a balancer V3 boosted pool. So I think Funky can probably explain this better. But yeah, it will deposit the WETH into Aave. I mean, this will be the first branded LST that like we've partnered with a balancer for. So I think it'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, anything we should touch on the balancer pool, Funky?
I think Derek explained it correctly. It's basically a pool where the WETH is deposited in Aave, so it earns around 2%, which helps increase the yield on the LP while maintaining basically the same amount of liquidity. There's a bit more gas involved on Arbitrum, it doesn't really matter. And we're partnering with them there, and they'll be putting some of their own incentives there from various different sources, including their voting power. And for those who have seen our application for the Arbitrum ETH 7,500 thing, we have an application there with Balancer. And as I understand it, they are kind of revisiting the allocations that they initially kind of made. So interesting potential opportunity for us there as well.
Yeah. So we'll be playing the DAO games with Arbitrum, and we'll be working on incentives and all the rest. I guess one more branded LST thing that came up recently was the change in the ZK Sync Ignite incentives program. It looks like we had a couple of people maybe farming the Maverick pool and stuff that may be affected. So I don't know, Funky might have to call you back to get an overview of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been working closely with ZK Sync since before we launched on for ZK ETH. I think the ZK team is really excited about ZK ETH because it's one of the first native LSTs or native assets for ZK Sync. So we received some good support there, and we've been included in the Ignite rounds basically since round 2, where they started supporting assets other than USDC and ZK. And in the round that started on Monday, basically a lot of integrations got unlisted. And as we understand it, has nothing to do with us specifically. It's more about kind of, well, two things. One is the market is really bad, and therefore they're looking to kind of cut back on the ZK emissions. And then secondly, I think their kind of timelines for the interoperability has changed. So instead of continuing to incentivize, they're looking to incentivize more closer to when the interoperability upgrade goes live, which has been delayed now. But we had a kind of good discussion with ZK for this week, and we're hopeful to get back added to the Ignite program for the next round. I think the community feedback from OBL's change in incentives this round was met with a lot of strong community feedback. I think they'll probably kind of adjust how they're approaching it. So yeah, we'll see what
Yeah,
happens next
it's
round.
probably a good time now to bring up like how some of these like DAO incentives programs work. Like oftentimes they are like whenever the Arbitrum staking thing happened, people were kind of upset that they didn't stake with us or Orbith, which wasn't live at the time the decision was made. And then obviously there's the ZK Sync one that happened as well. Like a lot of times it's third parties running these individual like incentive programs. It's not the foundations themselves, whether it's for legal liability or strategic decisions, I don't really know. But just because we have a close relationship with some foundations doesn't mean that always like guarantees something, right? So like for example, working with the Arbitrum Foundation, one thing that's good about that is that we can help receive marketing support, but they obviously can't guarantee that the DAO group that is like deciding where incentives go, or not incentives, deciding where to stake their ETH war chest or whatever, they don't have necessarily like a ton of influence over that. And so there's always like a degree of separation here that's worth considering. And we were as active as we can be behind the scenes on those conversations, but sometimes it's a little bit of a politicking game, and sometimes money talks. But hopefully, the I think with the feedback that the DAO got on the Arbitrum decision, and then the feedback the ZK Sync ecosystem gave on the Ignite program, like hopefully things can kind of go in a different direction, and one that helps us out a bit. So just want to like fully air that out so there's not confusion on what's going on here. And to be even more clear, there definitely are foundations that have more unilateral control over the distribution of incentives and things like that. And for those, we work very closely with them, like with Flare and a couple of others. So we always try to work close with the foundation, but there's sometimes a little bit of separation between the foundation and the DAO for whatever reasons they have. So worth mentioning. Okay, and so I think that was most of what went live on socials over the past 2 weeks, and covers like a lot of the discussion in the Discord. I think the next thing we can kind of talk about is IPX ETH and what's going on there. Some of you may have saw in the deposit tracker that, was it yesterday or the day before? I think it was yesterday. A pretty sizable deposit went into IPX ETH. I'm sure some of you are wondering why we didn't announce it, and that's because there are some bigger announcement things kind of at play that we're working on with our partners behind the scenes. And so the way these firms kind of operate's a little bit different than the way we might operate, where we just see something and we tweet about it, or make a graphic or whatever. So Jamie, I don't know if there's any IPX ETH stuff you kind of wanted to go over.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, like we want to make sure that, I think the first time we announced IPX ETH, we told everyone like we're just announcing it now because we foresee what's about to happen with like the rest of the deposits, and it's a slow roll always. And we got it out there because the fund was technically live as soon as we announced it. But now is when the exciting stuff is starting to happen. The big deposits from our committed partners are starting to flow in. And when stuff like that happens, it's like, just because you guys see it on chain and there's like a 5-day delay, it doesn't mean anything. Like they want to get PR ready, and you leverage it to like get us in front of new potential investors and stuff like that. So like, if it's an announcement for something that's not related to us at all, like there's literally nothing we can do. If it's something that one of our partners like Laser or Galaxy wants to announce and headline and take lead on, then like there's like we're not going to talk about it because that's their announcement, not ours. It's just the announcement is great for us because it leverages us, but we have no insight as to like when that will happen. But we're working with them to give them what they need to make it happen.
Yeah, there's some people asking for leaks, which we can't provide. I think like one thing about IPX ETH that's unique relative to the other products is like there are other parties involved, and anything we leak could potentially like risk
Yeah.
the relationship we have.
And also there's like really like the product's not in our hands anymore, right? Like the product is now owned by the people who partnered with us for it, right? So Laser Digital, Galaxy, the original funds that we partnered on this with, like they own the contracts now, they own the sales funnel, they own everything, right? So we'll get updates from them when we ask, just because we're working closely with them. But there's not necessarily something that we have as much insight as when we were the ones actually building it out for them.
Yeah. So, either way, starting to see the funds roll in, which is nice. We're also working on some like marketing collateral that we do have control over, stuff that's like, public information, but I think it'll be cool when we push it live. Like, for example, we're working on a specific marketing page that will kind of give insights into, what the IPX TVL is, some of the narrative around it, how it works, why it's important, stuff like that. So we'll have some stuff for you guys to look at in the near future that, you could share on socials and all the rest. But it's in the final stages. We're adding finishing touches, but it'll be cool when it's out. We actually have a lot of pages like that we're working on that should be out soon.
Maybe is Mullen here?
I don't think so. Or
Maybe
even
he
if he
can.
is, I don't want to put him on the spot to to present
No,
without.
maybe he can send some stuff as it's
Yeah,
being.
well, maybe you could leak a screenshot or two if you're around. But yeah, we're working on stuff. There's lots cooking, and we're also like working on improvements to the branded LST UI and things like that. So, okay, do we want to talk about that one proposal?
I'll send like a very summarized screenshot so that it's kind of easier for people to refer to.
Okay.
I think there's a KRIS from the partner.
I'll lead with the context of it, I guess. So obviously, one thing we're trying to do now is, we've been talking with a bunch of people, big funds, maybe like, you know, well, I won't say their name, but talking with funds, talking with like partners, and like sort of like crowdsourcing ideas on what we can do to like really leverage our TVL beyond just even let's call them like the buyback program that we have now. Because even though that just went live, I think like even adding like cherries on top of that would be cool and make the product like a bit more intertwined with token, right? Not from a utility standpoint, but from like a value capture standpoint. And I think a lot of you guys are aware of like how the TVL is like been coming in, and now we're at a stage where it's like we're like top 10 LST when ETH is not shitting the bed. It's over 200 mil with new all-time highs in ETH TVL like every day. And what can we do with that money that ties into the token that is obviously like one doesn't put the product at risk, because a lot of people try this stuff and it ends up like killing the whole project, because what happens is what happens is like you just like you have two different stakeholders essentially, and you start mixing the risks, you start mixing the needs of one over the other, and it ends up just like being like a bad trade overall, because now no one's happy, right? But what are like the little things we can do to like leverage the TVL that we have? And yeah, so like I was saying, you guys are aware of who our bigger TVL providers are. Resolve is obviously one of those names that kind of came out of the blue for like a lot of people, but they've been really good partners to us. They were one of our big points campaigns that we worked with, and generally just good guys, just good guys. And I don't know if they have their okay, I won't say why they're posting this now, but for us, basically, like what we're gonna propose, or maybe Frankie, you can talk about like the exact proposal, but is something where we can leverage a bit of the yield and the TVL that they have over PXE and use that to buy Dinero. And Funky can explain the exact details of how it works, but it's something we're starting to look at now with Resolve and some other partners, so that we can, make the most of it, make the most of the TVL that we're partnering with these guys on.
Yeah, so I shared the kind of a very well, basically the key points of the proposal. And this is something that Resolve kind of jointly came up with us. But I mean, I think that Sammy touched Resolve was really cool because they were really interested in us from the beginning. They kind of approached us and became one of the, if not the largest APX ETH holder currently. I think the second is or ETH by a smidge. But what the idea is that the team at Resolve And I think as Sammy was saying, is that there's a lot of the partners that work with us are very interested in the product, but also the project in general. So there's this kind of possibility to kind of align themselves with the product that they love so much by kind of acquiring Dinero tokens. And the mechanism which is kind of proposed here is that in this specific case, 10% of the APX ETH yield that they hold, which is about 20,000 APX ETH, would be used to buy Dinero on the market. And then we would give them a kind of fee rebate of about 50% of that 10%. So 5% fee rebate there. So it's kind of like they create this kind of Dinero buy pressure. And then for being aligned, we give them a fee kickback from the case ETH fees, which ends up in mutually beneficial result for them for growing a Dinero kind of treasury position while also kind of generating yield for their community.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kickster, I think the exact numbers we should post it either today or if it doesn't get posted today, Monday, on the exact numbers.
We're just waiting for the result. We're just waiting for the result. So there's a draft, and the result team just needs to kind of sign off.
Yeah, I was gonna add that this is still not in like final form. Still working on finalizing the details.
Yeah.
But we wanted to float it here sooner rather than later. That way people can start to think about it before, the vote goes up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting mechanism, I think. And I think it can bring a lot of, it kind of creates a lot of synergies between Resolve and Dinero. And I think overall will just create more alignment with the token holders, but also more buy pressure on the Dinero side.
Yep. I saw a question above. Oh, the Binance thing. So that new like Binance vote to list thing, like that just went out today. So there's no way I could give you an answer right this second. We'll have to take a look at it and see what it is and if there's a way to participate. Will the buy pressure from this new proposal be more than we lose from fee discount for our own buybacks?
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like purely altruistic. It's basically they buy 2 Dinero and then we give them back 1 Dinero.
Trying to see. Oh yeah, and I guess I can answer this question for the sake of the recording, but doesn't that put us into a similar position as with other protocols that owned a big share? We answered this in chat, like not really, because those weren't like Sammy said, that wasn't direct buy pressure, and on top of that, their allocations were not connected to like growth of the protocol. That's basically why we decided to move away from those agreements, because we saw that there was a big supply overhang going to people who are not contributing to the success of Dinero, redacted at that time. And an agreement like this is much more aligned for both parties. APX ETH is good for their product. Them staking TVL is good for our product. And then them buying token is obviously good for the market. Not that many questions. So overall, more Dinero buying. Yeah, it would be more Dinero buy pressure, but from like a source related to product growth, which is always nice. But they stake their Dinero. I think that's up to their governance, not mistaken.
Yeah, so I mean, like, they don't have a token yet, but they would pass this proposal through their stakeholders as well. I think ideally, there would be kind of some wording as to exactly how the Dinero would be held or how long, etc. But things can change, especially on their side, when they do have a token or when their stakeholders kind of change. It's a more difficult one to get them to commit, especially because like the buying would be on a rolling basis, right? As the yield is earned, as opposed to like one shot.
Yeah. Okay. I think that covers most of the stuff from the past 2 weeks. Is there anything I left out? that we should go over? Maybe we can call it kind of early today. How many ETH do they have? You said 20K, right?
Yeah, 20K. Yeah, so based on the 20K number, I think the buy pressure would be like 70 ETH or something like that at the current, really bad prices of ETH.
How much will the Pectra update help us?
So I think it's something we can talk about. It's really cool. So I think the Pectra update will kind of change. There's like a few key updates with Pectra. The first one is, I think the one that's most talked about is that right now Validator can hold 32 ETH, whereas in the future Validator can hold up to 2048 ETH, so 64 times more. And so what that means is basically Validator costs or operational costs will go down. I think they go down. We've had discussions with a number of parties, and the opinions on how much they'll go down are quite varied, but the cost will go down. Another kind of really cool thing as well is that there's a bit more ability to move the ETH. So with Pectra, there's this thing called like validator or node consolidation. So say I have two nodes and then I want to merge them into one. You can do that quite simply, or merge 10 nodes into one, which means that you can kind of move your ETH around. And for those who have been kind of keeping up with kind of developments in like staking, there's like a number of different levers that can be used to generate additional yield, like restaking, SSV, etc. So with a greater ability to kind of move your ETH around, it means that you can tap into these additional yield sources a bit easier. So I think that's something that will be quite interesting for us to explore post Spectra, but also looking to kind of find the best yields in the most risk adjusted way.
Let's see. Oh, can you give some details on the plan for the Dinero wrapped barrel reward vault, the 80/20 pool? Like, what's our plan for it? Looking to incentivize, etc.
So if you go on the Barra forum, you can see our proposals for our pools. We're applying for a whitelist for two tokens, Dinero and Barra. For the Dinero plans are quite straightforward, right? We'll run kind of similar incentives as we do for the kind of mainnet pools. And then we received like 110,000 Barra from the RFA airdrop. And that is kind of allocated or earmarked for kind of things like that. So that's the plan.
Cool. Yeah, I think I think we said this last call, but apparently the bear chain. Are we getting some of that? Yeah, I mean there is an allocation that goes to Dinero.
To give you guys an update, we've deployed in hand on Barachain, and we've taken the snapshot for the Barra airdrop to SNR holders, and we're just finishing up the kind of setup for distributing the airdrop. There are 14 addresses which will have to do a separate claim. So essentially, there's Barra is only on.
Did we lose him? I think we lost Monkey. Rip.
Yeah.
Hello?
Well, what are you saying? Yeah.
Wait,
you're back.
you might be back.
Yeah, so we're preparing for the airdrop. Some users who use multi-sig as a holder SDNR will have to do in a different way because of them not owning the same address on Barachain, and we can only do the airdrop on Barachain because Barra only lives on Barachain at this point in time.
Yep. Okay.
Also, do we remember the exact split on the how we're distributing the 100% of the RFA? So yeah, 70% have to be incentives.
I think it was like 65% is going to the Barra ETH / Dinero pools, and then 15% is going to airdrop, and the rest is going to the treasury.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that covers most of everything. Sam, any last stuff you wanted to cover?
Let's see. More bear to LP. Yeah. No, I think that's everything.
All right. Well, in that case, we will call it there. We'll do a
We got
community
anything
call.
else? We got anything else cooking on Barra? Yeah, Oracle's coming, so there should be, leverage looping and stuff like that. Some more integrations. You might be able to mint the stable coin necked against it soon. So just being more entwined in that whole ecosystem, and as the governance starts to roll out, like you'll start to see some cool more integrations. Anything cooking on Sonic? No, nothing cooking on Sonic. Just didn't have a good conversation with them, honestly, not good vibes. I don't think there's anything we can get out of that.
What stuff in the pipeline are you guys most excited about personally? The institutional stuff or the branded LSTs? Both, some of which we cannot talk about at the moment.
I think the most exciting stuff is the institutional stuff. Now that it's ETH is more good news. I think the institutional stuff is definitely really exciting, just because I think the branded LST stuff is something that's integral to the product and integral to our multi-chain strategy. But as you guys know, like the whole on-chain side of things is just a complete mess. That's something that's just not in our control, as much as we wish we could control that, it's not. And the institutional opportunity is exciting because it allows us to like tap into like a whole new world that we haven't tapped into. We have someone who did join the team but doesn't join the team calls for doesn't join the community calls because I won't explain who he is, but we have a new team member that like recently actually went out to like this family office meetup in America on the West Coast, and like met a bunch of people that are just like completely sidelined from like crypto. A bunch of these like very, very big family offices, and we're putting them in front of like originally it's hard to just like put them in front of crypto opportunities because like they're all scams for the most part, right? But for us it's really exciting because this is like a product they're familiar with. It's structured as like a fund. Obviously we are not able to solicit the fund ourselves, but we're able to like get these opportunities like in front of people. And like the new team member bracket S that have been like helping get this stuff off the ground is just like pretty, like it gives like the team, I'd say, like a lot of like hope and energy, whereas I talk to like other projects in the space and everyone's kind of fucked. And I think for us it's like we sort of have like a real golden opportunity here. I don't think that generally like the market's like woken up to that, or they doubt our abilities to do that. And I think now you're starting to see like like a few thousand clips of ETH like getting clipped into like IPX ETH, and all of a sudden it's real, paired on top of like what we're just seeing on like conference runs. And like this year for example, we did have someone in ETH Denver, but we actually got more stuff done in this like TradFi family office meetup in San Francisco that had like no crypto people there. We got more stuff done there than we did in like ETH Denver, just because ETH Denver was so bleak. And I'll let Terrence was the one in Denver. He can talk about Denver next time, but very bleak and not a lot of like promise in terms of what people are building or their conviction on it compared to us, where I think we're in the best position we could be in, all things considered.
What's Terrence cooking? Yeah, maybe he can we'll put out some stuff that we can put out from the blog in the near future. We'll be doing some longer form stuff to just like reinforce narrative and go through like what's been happening the past several months, where we're going, and all that good stuff. So I think despite the outlook on the market and ETH refusing to go up, we've been still doing pretty well. So anyways, we'll wrap it up there and give everybody a little bit of time back. And anyways, enjoy the Friday, enjoy the weekend, and we will see you all in a couple weeks. Peace.
Later.